Here's a preview of this episode.
I don't know, be confident, like have fun. I think the biggest thing in the past 2 years though is it was too small for comedy. Like I hit a ceiling.
As a girl is just like, comedy's the best.
No,
so fun,
dude,
guys.
that is so not it.
Okay.
No, I feel like comedy draws like a lot of people with. I think it's really good advice though, because they do just want you to like crush consistently. So like you
That's
don't
not
want
what
to.
you want in Walt
No.
Disney World. I just paid $225.
I know,
And
but
17
like,
bucks for a hot dog.
But like exactly, but deadpan is like in, and it's like actual less physical.
And now this episode. Here we go. Oh my goodness. We're here with Sarah Benson,
Hi.
Mark Masters. We're 63 miles away from Hodi's. We're in downtown Denver. It looks like an hour and 18 minutes.
Thank you for
today.
having me.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is gonna be fun.
This is gonna be great. Sarah, best guest ever, brought me a beverage.
Oh yeah, got the
Thank
free
you.
tea from work.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks
yeah.
for driving, Mark.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. Tell me. So you're I gotta put my glasses on.
Good idea.
You're an experienced comedian, right? I remember the first time I saw you at Mutiny. Hilarious. And it's you can always tell a transplant open mic comedian because they're so good.
Thanks.
So I assume that wasn't your first time up at a mic.
No.
So how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing comedy for 7 years. A
Wow.
little over 7
Holy cow.
years.
That's
Yeah.
terrific.
I did take 6 months off to hike the trail, but like, yeah.
The Appalachian Trail, right?
Yeah, the Appalachian Trail. But like,
Amazing human being.
thank you.
The whole way. How far is that?
2,200 miles almost, 2,190.9.
Not that we're counting.
Huh.
Yes.
I was totally counting.
Yes.
But you know what? The thing about comedy is like sometimes it feels like it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, because it's like, a couple of those years I was mostly at college and I was doing like one open mic a week.
Okay.
So like,
Yeah,
while it
I
was
get-
still helpful.
Sometimes I get frustrated when I'm out of town and people ask me how long I've been doing comedy. I wish they would ask me how many open mics have you done. Not like, everybody accelerates at different paces, but I feel like, some people go up once a week for like 3 years, and that's, 150 mics, but you can do 150 mics in 6 months too.
Right.
In Denver, which is a super good scene, and it's hard, and there are people who are really good all around you, and
I will say, having done comedy for a long time, just like time, and not even a long time compared to like a lot of people, but if anything, like doing comedy in other scenes and smaller scenes and just in general, I don't think that it necessarily did make my comedy better, but like it like made my perspective on comedy better.
Huh.
Like it's all a long thing, man. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Like there are going to be people who are not as good as you getting booked more than you some months, and then you're going to be getting booked more than people who are way better than you other months.
Right.
Like getting booked is not indicative of talent.
Sure.
Like just stuff like that, I think, is more what I have learned having done comedy for a long time.
Yeah.
And like, rejection happens all the time. Like, don't be afraid of it. Like,
Right.
I think it's more just like those types of lessons than like, I write jokes well, or like I don't write jokes well, So,
Right.
and just like navigating the dynamics of like comedy scenes is something that I've learned from doing comedy in a couple different little scenes. But obviously, like, even 7 years is just like a really small drop in like the bucket of
That's
doing
crazy
comedy.
to hear. What do you think?
Thank you.
What do you think are some of the things you've learned? Let's say since 5 years. So last 2 years. What are some things?
That's a good
as
question.
a mature comedian.
Last 2 years would have been like 2017, 2018. I think I learned, I guess this is 2016, but I went to Orlando in the end of 2016, and I lived there for a little bit, and that was like my first like big move into like a new comedy scene, and that was cool. And it was just, I think from like that I learned like, it doesn't really matter what you do in any other city, but I kind of already knew that going into it. But also just like be confident in your abilities and like have fun, like you're probably not as bad as you think you are, maybe. Like like, I don't know, be confident, like have fun. I think the biggest thing in the past 2 years though is like, don't be afraid to be weird, and don't be afraid to not necessarily know what your punchline is.
Huh.
Like, I don't know. And that's something that I still struggle with, but like, the people who really crush, like, are just so genuine and authentic, and it's so easy to get on board with them, even if they don't have like super obvious punchlines. And I think that's something that I've only learned somewhat recently.
Huh.
So I'd say that's that.
That's awesome.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a bit that you think demonstrates that? Like, I know a bunch of your bits.
Yeah.
Like, I can think of, like, I'm thinking right now of the Nature Valley one, which has an obvious punchline.
Yeah, thank you. I like
it's
that
hilarious.
one.
That one's
Thank
great.
you. I think like,
Or is that something you've noticed in other people, but you're still working on? And
I think kind of a mix of both. I have that, like, I have a call and response joke where I make people say, but not in a sexy way. I did not think that that would ever, like, go over well, but now I use it, like, all the time.
Huh.
And I think it's partially just because I have fun with it, but, yeah, I never thought that would get a good response.
Huh.
And people
Isn't
like
that funny?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there have been jokes that I've written where I'm like, this is really just silly and fun, and I love it, and, like, everybody hates it.
I know, that's such a disappointment.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have jokes that you feel like are,
all that are,
that are better than you thought would go over?
yes, all the time.
Really?
Like regularly. Like, if I bring 3 minutes of new material, you know, usually like the one-liner, two-liner kind of things, like, I think they're so funny and clever, and I don't know if people are like, oh, I've heard that before, because, you know, that happens.
Yeah.
Or they're just like, that's so, like, it's too obvious.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I've started to learn. I'm like a little more than a year and a half, or no, a little less than a year and a half in.
Oh, what an
And
exciting
I'm a baby.
time.
I'm just a little baby.
We're all babies, though. I'm still a baby, man. You know, like, I definitely am so thankful for my experiences pre-Denver that have made Denver easier. But yeah, like I keep saying, like, all of the time that I've done doing comedy, I still feel like I only really have 20 minutes that I'm proud of. And that's like even kind of a stretch with like tough audiences.
Yeah.
And I've been doing comedy for 7 years. Like,
Right.
but that's the
Is
thing.
any of that or is any of the material from your first year?
No. Oh my God, no. No.
Right.
I know. You're at a point where it's like,
I mean, I'm constantly throwing away everything and
that's
starting
okay.
over, and I love it. Like, I'm always
Yeah.
so happy with my latest thing.
that's good.
And then the next thing, I hate the thing before.
And also I think it's because, and this might not be the same for you because you're older and you're in a more stable part of your life, but when I started doing comedy, I was like 18. So like, as a 25-year-old, I'm like a different person. I've had different life experiences. Like, my jokes when I started, especially like the first summer that I started doing comedy in Rochester where there was a comedy scene, like, then I really did have jokes and stuff, but they were just like so kind of reliant on the fact that I looked really young and like innocent.
Right.
And it wasn't really shock humor, but it was just like puns and like nothing really like that much about me. It was just
Right.
more like about things. There wasn't a ton of connection, but like it was because I was young and cute. It was like, okay, this is funny, this is fun, but like I could never get away with, I think, that like style.
Yeah.
Even-
So Rochester is New York, right?
Yeah,
Not
Rochester.
Michigan.
Yeah, good
Or
question.
somewhere else.
Minnesota. Yeah, I think there's one.
What is that? What is Rochester, New York like for comedy? And how long were you there?
I love Rochester, New York for comedy. I'm like so nostalgic. Like, I think I hated it when I was in it because I knew that I was gonna leave, you know? Like, I knew that I couldn't stay there, and I think that made me like kind of hate it, but I don't think you should ever hate something because it's temporary, now that I like think about it. I think when I was in it, I was like, ugh, I can't wait to leave. But it's like, no,
And
that's
did you want to leave because you felt like it was too small, or just is that where you grew up? Or
yeah, I knew that I was gonna leave because it was too small for comedy. Like, I hit a ceiling. And
how far? I'm not real good at geography. How far is that from like New York City? Like, can you hop on a train and?
you could hop on a train and be there in like a day.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's like a 6-hour drive.
Okay.
So it's not like close at all.
Okay.
It wasn't. Yeah, the comedy scenes did not really touch.
Is there a bigger city closer, like Hartford, Connecticut, or is it the wrong direction?
Good question. Buffalo and Syracuse honestly had really comparable comedy scenes, and I'd say like Rochester was actually the better comedy scene out of the three. I was about an hour and a half away from both Buffalo and Syracuse. from where I lived.
Was there a club in Rochester?
Yep, there was a club called the Comedy Club. It's just what it was called. God, this is like a throwback. And now the owners own a different club called Comedy at the Carlson. But the club was like somewhat disconnected from the scene and still is. Just the club owners are not like inclusive and they really only book the same shitty people. And it's like, well, you're kicking yourself. So, yeah, they weren't ever great. I did some work when it was called the Comedy Club. I did a bit more work there, but for whatever reason, that just kind of fizzled out. So it was never like indicative of talent. There wasn't like a ladder to climb like here in Denver.
I've heard that a lot. Like people are so happy with the Comedy Works system. And like people, particularly people who transplant, they're like, this is incredible that there's like, I mean, it can be frustrating also because it can take forever.
But it's like,
but you know where you stand.
And people are rewarded for showing up and hard work and stuff. And I think that's really cool. But I definitely think that like my experiences and perspectives have caused me, like I keep saying, like it's not about getting booked. That's not like indicative of how talented you are. Like where you are in Comedy Works is also not indicative of how talented you are. It's like indicative of how much time you've spent there. And how talented you are, for sure.
Right.
But like not necessarily. And I do think that people who start doing comedy, like, or pretty much anyone in the younger years of comedy, and which I still am in, but like the young years, tend to like think of being booked on shows or like a hierarchy at Comedy Works or just like whatever as being indicative of actually being a good comedian. But like that's just not gonna matter if you move. It's not gonna matter that much. Not that being said, like, you know, the people who are pros at Comedy Works are all really, really good at comedy. But I'm more saying like A, B, C, like, or just B and C. Like, nobody's gonna care that you were a B at Comedy Works if you moved to LA. Like,
gotcha.
There's just like no space for that.
So you're the most relentlessly positive person I know in the comedy scene.
Oh my God, thank you.
What is that like? Do you notice that a lot of people are pessimistic or maybe a little
like in their
Debbie
comedy
Downer?
or in general?
No, particularly off the stage.
Oh
like,
yeah, I guess.
And is that translate outside of Denver? Because I'm pretty much only like I've done some travel, but I've never lived somewhere else. And done comedy.
That's a good question. I think it kind of does. I think the people
like sorry to interrupt, but I just imagine like Rochester being 100 of you.
Yeah.
Just like super bubbly guys and girls, just like comedy's the best.
No,
so
dude,
fun,
that is so not it.
Okay.
No, I feel like comedy draws like a lot of people with, for whatever reason, like some sort of, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't even know how to articulate this, but I do think that people who do comedy tend to have like can have some issues sometimes. No, I was definitely the most positive person in Rochester, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was
and were you always that positive?
Yeah, I've always been a really positive person. I feel really lucky because I do think it's somewhat like based on genetics, but also I do really try, and then sometimes I like fake happy until I feel happy, and like
fake it till you make it.
It's whatever, man. It's whatever.
Dress good to feel good.
Yeah, dude, that's 100% it. And surround yourself with people who make you feel good.
Yeah.
Like that is helpful. But yeah, the optimism, I think you have to have it, and I think if anything, comedy's just made it stronger because you realize that like everything is really just a drop in the bucket. Like a show, an open mic, you know, getting rejected like by someone personally if you're trying to date, like not getting a job, like all of that, like similar to a show or an open mic. Like if you bomb one thing, there's gonna be 50 other things.
Yeah, if anything, open mic comedians are expert at rejection.
Yeah, I'd say some of them.
Constantly, at least rejected by the open mic audience.
Yeah.
You can bring killer material.
Yeah, yeah, for
get blank
sure.
stares and,
and
you develop a
sometimes
thick skin.
Yes, yeah, and you realize that like, I personally think the only thing that is failure is like giving up, you know? I've like bombed some open mics real hard, even like recently, where I'm like, that was probably one of my worst sets ever.
And is it material, like new material, or material that's worked before?
It's new material typically, I think. And it's also just like, for me, bombing, I don't even really like the term bombing because like I keep saying, I don't think anything is really a failure. But for me, reaction, it's because of like how I compose myself. Like I can have what I consider a really good set and have no one laugh at it, and that's fine because like I just like kept the energy up. But
Right.
like I've had a couple sets recently where I'm just like super fucking anxious,
Yeah.
and like
Like you don't get the laugh and you panic.
yeah, or I'm
I
just
do
like
that all the time.
panicking from the start, and it's like, girl, like just don't panic. Like you know what to do. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just other things in my life that have been stressing me out. But then it's so funny, and like both of these sets that I'm mentioning and like that I have in my mind have been at Black Buzzard. But then I go to Mutiny and I have like so much fun. So I
wonder if it's because you can't always see the audience at Black Buzzard.
typically I
and
really
maybe
like that. I really
That
like
you can't?
Yeah,
Okay.
I really like that about Black Buzzard. I think it's just that I've been putting weird pressure on myself at Black Buzzard because a lot of like young hot people show up for whatever reason. And like I don't know if it's like an inferiority complex or what. But like especially like last week, like two like young kind of hot dude comics went up before me. I didn't like their material and the audience really liked it, and I just went up there and I was like, these people are gonna fucking hate me. And I think like because I'm kind of alt, I'm like weird, I'm like a little uncomfortable, and I think like also having that defeatist attitude
Yeah.
really set me back. The
Yeah,
best.
they can smell the fear, the
Yeah,
audience.
yeah.
I mean, they can't literally, like,
And you
but
don't want
there's
to tell
something...
yourself that it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying.
yeah, it's so wild.
I mean, you might not be able to remember, but in the beginning, that's what it's like almost every open mic.
oh god,
Like,
yeah.
you've like never succeeded, and so
Mhm.
you're always panicky and scared. And I, like, in the very beginning, there were times where I just didn't go up. I was like,
Wow.
you know, I would go to Three Kings, sit there, like, not get called in the first hour and be like, I don't think I want to do this. I'm
Wow.
leaving.
You see, I've always been really into forcing myself. So
Yeah.
I never really go to an open mic. I've never gone to an open mic that I haven't done stand up
I've-
at unless I've like gotten physically sick.
Huh.
But
I've definitely done it for two reasons. One, and usually I had something else to do. It was like,
Right.
you know, it was like, I could go do this, and Three Kings is the Friday night.
Right.
Like, for people who don't know. Or I could wait another couple hours. But like when I'm anxious and my like stomach hurts, I'm like, you
Oh,
know what?
yeah.
I'd rather go somewhere else.
yeah.
And then other times, like tonight, I might go by Irish Rover, and you know, this is gonna take so long to drive and do, and it'd be a great performance in Fort
Yeah.
Collins, and I'll just like say hi to like 15 comedians and then leave, because
right.
I don't really want to put my name down and wait another 2 hours.
Right.
So
Yeah. So yeah, this will be fun though. We're both gonna go up at this mic,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. This
yeah,
is gonna be
it's a
sweet.
good crowd.
I'm
They,
excited.
they get like non-comedians in the audience, and
That's gonna be
Nate's
great.
a great host, and
Oh yeah, it's Nate's mic.
yeah. Nate
Cool.
Brown.
Cool, Nate Brown, old Nate
Mhm.
Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a fun question. If you could time travel back to your... Well, do you remember your first open mic?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can tell that story in a second.
Okay.
And then you can follow it up with, if you could time travel back and tell yourself something that you could hold on to for the next 7 years and beyond, what would that message be?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know what? It's so tough though, because like even if I could, I know that I would have just like, it would have been in one ear out the other. It's all stuff that you have to learn by doing, unfortunately. But I think I would tell myself, like, you're gonna be great. Just good job already. You're gonna be, it's all good. You're gonna be good. It's all gonna be fine. Like, I don't know. I think I don't know. I guess I would tell myself, like, have confidence because it's all gonna be fine. And none of it really matters.
Okay.
But I never really put too much, I did put a lot of pressure on myself actually, especially to write jokes in the beginning.
Okay.
But
Tell us about the first mic, or me.
the first mic, oh, it was so fun. It was at my college and it was like pretty much all music. Everybody said that it was like an open mic, but like really people only did music and sometimes poetry.
Okay.
And I forced myself to go, and it was the night after I saw Jay Black, who's a traveling comedian, like come to our college, and I talked to him about it, and he was just like, just go, just do it, just have fun. So I did, and it was fun. Like, it was difficult, and it was outside, and there were like Christmas lights wrapped around like the mic stand and like a little music holder thing, and it was cute and it was fun, and I just forced myself to go to that mic every single week
Nice.
every single week of my freshman year and like my sophomore year, but especially my freshman year. And then I just always did that mic. And over the summer, I started doing comedy in Rochester. So then my sophomore year, I was like booked on more shows in like Syracuse and Rochester. And I would also do, you know, like the open mic and improv and stuff. And then, yeah, that was like college for me. It was
That's
great.
Awesome. Do you remember any of your original jokes?
Yeah, I do. And I actually just sort of based a new joke off of an original joke.
Ooh, nice.
Thank you. I really just like based the eye contact part of it off of there. I used to have a joke about like seeing someone in a bathroom stall, like it through the crack in the door, and then I'd make really intense eye contact, and then I would like make intense eye contact with a person in the audience. It had kind of a silly punchline. It was about like the Cuban Missile Crisis and whatever, but it was cute. And like I would always open with that joke because the eye contact like really drew people in. And now I have a joke where I like make
Nice.
really intense eye contact with somebody. So I think I could like rework the premise, but that, and I do remember another joke about like hugging women and having it just so that like our boobs touch and talking about that. But those are really...
Was it about relative height?
No,
or,
it
like,
was about how a lot of
closeness?
my jokes like ended up, the punchlines ended up being about history. So I like joked about it being like the Iron Curtain. And it's just like fucking weird. And now like looking back at it, it's like, oh God. But I mean, I didn't say anything like super offensive for the most part. I think I had one joke that I'm ashamed of, but like I really didn't have jokes that were like, God, like shock humor or like dark, like too dark
That's
or
a
really
common-
inappropriate. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to call it a mistake, but a common.
I think it is a mistake.
Okay.
For people starting, I think it's a mistake. If you can write clean, especially when you start, just like keep doing that because it's like a skill and it'll get you booked more and it'll make you stand out. But I think a lot of new comedians just like do dark, dirty, and it's just like we've heard it all before. I think clean is just like so much more the way to go. So I am really thankful that I've always just been clean. And I think it's just because I'm like a relatively innocent person. Like I do tend to joke more about sex when I'm having more sex, and I just don't have a lot of sex. So works out really well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Clean life, clean material.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep. These are great questions.
I'm just making them up. So.
Well, you're doing great.
You're not the first person I've done this with, so I've had a little bit of practice. I'm getting better at it.
You're doing really well, Mark.
Well, thank you. You're so positive.
Thank
I love it.
Thank you. You are too,
Yeah,
honestly.
you can ask me questions too.
Okay,
We can-
cool.
it can go
Yeah.
both ways.
Thank you. I was just wondering. I was like, can I? Okay, cool. Will
Yes,
do.
You have permission.
Thank you.
So speaking of clean comedy, have you done any like what I would describe as like well-paying corporate stuff? Like I know you don't get booked by Comedy Works, but like some of those pro list people, like they get sent out to some company and make
Oh, dude, that's
like
dope.
a lot of money for an hour of material.
I had no idea. Good for them.
Oh no.
Good for them. And good for them. God damn it. Yeah, that
You'll
would
get
be
there.
such a good goal. I think I really do need to invest more time in Comedy Works, just like being there. But it's so hard because I want to be writing jokes at that time. And thick skin is so stressful because you might not even go up. So I get all stressed out.
Why don't you explain for everybody's benefit what thick skin is?
Okay, will do. And then I will return to this question eventually.
Okay.
So Thick Skin is essentially a show where there are professional comedians, but then you can also be put in a bucket and your name gets drawn, and like then you can do a 5-minute set or a 4-minute set or whatever. And also the other thing about Comedy Works that I just don't love, but I don't have the confidence not to do it, I just do the same jokes every time I'm there because, and that's what like Elliot has said you should do.
He said that we were on the same show,
Yeah.
the talent night, and
And
I
I
thought
think
that was such. I was
think
really
that's good
surprised
advice.
by that.
I think
advice.
it's really good advice though, because they do just want you to like crush consistently. So like I'm so glad that he said that because
Yeah.
it does feel like it's like, okay, thank you for saying that's okay.
Right. And up until then, you know, that might have been the 4th time I'd been up. I did different material every single time.
And nobody's gonna notice though. That's the thing. They're gonna notice if you're doing
But the
really
thing
well.
is, like in the beginning, I don't want to do the material I did the first time because it was
Right.
terrible.
Right. But yeah, so you're in the phase where you're just trying to find good material.
Yeah.
Like, so I think you're in like a different phase.
Right.
which is okay. But
think
yeah,
the
I was kind of
last
happy that he said that.
Yeah, I think like some of my stuff is a little summer specific. It's like seasonal, but I would like to 3-4 months from now when I go back up, try and do the same exact thing because I've never done that before.
Right.
And you know, it should be punchier because I'll have been doing it for a long time.
Right.
And insert some new stuff. Maybe I'm a little more confident in act outs or what I'm doing on stage. But it'd be really interesting to compare tape between the two.
Yeah.
And see if there's a different Seinfeld did this thing when was it Letterman or somebody, you know, some late night host had their last show, and he did the same set that he had done 25 years earlier.
Wow.
Almost word for word.
Oh my god.
So I thought
That's
that was
so cool.
kind of interesting. And the jokes still worked, which is incredible. Speaking about clean comedy.
Yeah, that's
like there
the
was
thing
like
about Seinfeld.
a weatherman joke.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, there's still weathermen on TV.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Yeah, that's why like cultural reference jokes can be like, I think, tricky and like, yeah. No, he's great.
He's the best. Have you seen him ever? Live?
No, I have not. Have you?
Yeah, in a big theater.
Really? Was it cool?
It was unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah, it was really great. In fact, it was at the Buell in Denver.
Wow.
And I parked. Denver people will maybe understand this. Behind the theater, like kind of underneath the overhang by the parking garage, are some meter spots. And I got there early so I could go to dinner, and I parked. And as I was getting out, messing around with the meter, this was before they had credit cards, you had to have quarters and stuff. A black town car pulls up, and Jerry Seinfeld gets out.
What?
And this is when I learned I am not good around famous people.
I'm not good around famous people.
I lost it.
Really?
I was like, Jerry! I mean, maybe not that embarrassing, but pretty bad.
Really? What
And
did he do?
He looked at me,
They looked away.
a little bit of panic, and he went right in this like door I'd never seen before into
Oh
the
my
into the
God.
bowels of the theater.
That totally makes sense.
Because I'm sure he's used to that. Like, people are crazy around him,
Yeah.
and he doesn't want to deal with crazy.
No. I feel like I have family members who have met celebrities, like aunts and uncles, and I think my dad has met some, and he's always had like really cool interactions with them. It's just like
There's
really
an age
fun.
thing too. I'm definitely cooler now that I'm a little older, and I see them more as like normal people. But when you're like just figuring out how to be an adult, like anybody who's achieved anything seems like very mysterious.
I ran into Alec Baldwin once, and I was not smooth. And he was walking his 2 little dogs, and I was going to my internship, and I was just so...
Is this in New York City?
Yeah. I interned at Upright Citizens Brigade.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I used to do improv in college, and I was like pretty into it. And then the internship had nothing to do with improv, but I did
like business stuff?
It was like, it was just like shitty admin work, but not even business stuff. It was just like all of their stuff that they like didn't want to do. It was not a great...
Did you get paid?
No. They didn't even give me a free class. I had to pay for my own class. And it's like, what? Like, UCB, are you fucking kidding me? But I did meet some cool people, and like, it was a cool life experience. I wouldn't take it back. It was a very formative summer for me. I didn't do really, that was another time that I took a break from stand-up. Just because I had like some shitty life experience that summer too, and I just like was not in a space mentally to do it. And then I went to an open mic, and this guy like made a joke about something that had happened to me, and I was like, I'm not doing this. And then I just focused on improv, and I had a really great improv-y summer.
How do you think, as improv, do you think it helps your stand-up?
I don't think it really does, because I don't think I was doing improv and stand-up at the same time in college, so I think I grew with both of them at the same time, essentially, and then stand-up I definitely have ran with more. I think if there's any experience that helped my stand-up, it was working on the Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World. I was a skipper on the Jungle. Have you ever been to Walt Disney World?
I've been to Walt Disney World. I think I have.
The Jungle Cruise is like essentially a skipper tells
you're
jokes.
All like,
you're on a boat.
Okay.
And that, I think, experience like helped me way more.
Did they
than
give you the
improv.
jokes?
Yeah,
like,
so they gave you the jokes.
Kind of?
Yeah, you memorized the script and they gave you the jokes. And I was honestly like one of the best skippers because I delivered the jokes differently and better. Because I was upbeat and happy, and like most of the other people just tried to do like less energy just because like you don't
That's not
want
what
to.
you want in Walt
No.
Disney World. I just paid $225.
I know,
And
but
$17 for a hot dog.
But like, exactly. But deadpan is like in, and it's like actual less physical energy than being high energy. And I think like my personality I thought the jokes were really funny too. So I was like so into it, and everybody thought that they were stupid. So most of my coworkers were like really deadpan, and people just didn't take to it as well.
Do you know where the jokes came from?
I don't know. That attraction is so old. I think it was built in like the 70s with Walt Disney World originally, and like the original Jungle Cruise in Disneyland was supposed to be a serious ride, and then something kind of triggered it to be like silly.
Okay.
But no, the jokes are super old. They're all the same. There's like a Christmas version too that we did but I thought they were really funny.
Did you get a chance to suggest new jokes, or did you ever think up new jokes you wish you could tell?
I did think of new jokes, and one of my jokes that I did on Disney, or in Disney on my last day, I do in stand-up now, literally like all the time. It's
Nice.
the popular vote joke, where I'm like, does anybody want to see another joke? It's definitely less than half of you, but
Yes.
who cares about the popular vote? And
That's so funny. I just
Thank
assumed
you.
that joke was very recent, because that's topical
Yeah,
right
it
now,
happened.
given the last election.
I wrote it literally the day after the Trump election. That was my last day at Disney World. I quit
that was
day.
pretty recently then. Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2016.
Okay.
But I quit that day because Disney World was also just like full of Trump supporters, and I just like couldn't handle it. I was having a breakdown, like all my friends were
Did you
having
like working
breakdowns.
for Disney?
Oh, I hated it, but I did love the Jungle
I've like
Cruise.
read book chapters about how they coach their employees.
Everybody's like a number, and they do all this like weird manipulative shit to make you feel like you actually matter. But it's like, if you think your employees matter, like give them good benefits and like pay them enough to survive. Like, don't just like give us a cupcake.
They have
some
like
tunnels.
dorms for employees?
Yeah, they did. Fun fact about the dorms, apparently they were built and paid for by Coca-Cola, but they still have college program kids pay rent. So like they're just making fucking boatloads of money off of us. Also, they have a store that literally sells cast members broken shit that they can't sell to like actual people. So like it's just like a whole big thing. Like they make money like literally wherever and however they can, and it's very creative. But anyway, long story short, did not like working for Disney, but I did love the Jungle Cruise, and I do love the Jungle Cruise.
Did you have other jobs, or was that your
That was
main
my
thing?
only thing.
Okay.
Just everybody gets one assignment, and you just
I
do
bet you
that.
learn. I bet that helped your stand up a lot. Like if you're having a bad day, you still need to bring the energy.
Yeah.
Are there other lessons you felt like translated to stand up?
I really just think it was like the importance of acting stuff out, or the importance of being somewhat high energy as opposed to being, and everybody's different stylistically, so I'm not saying that that's bad, but what works for me is being like kind of high energy and happy. And that definitely was pretty much 100% like a Disney lesson. Not to say that I wasn't doing that before, but like I realized that it was an attribute, and I realized that it's something that I need to do pretty consistently at Disney. So I thank Disney for that.
Yeah. How did your joke go?
My favorite jokes?
No, your ad lib joke that you did your last day, which I assume you did because you could have gotten in trouble. Like you're not supposed to walk
You could have
script.
gotten like 100% fired, especially for a joke like that. That's like political. Yeah, that would have gotten me like definitely fired. But yeah, they had like spies on your boats when you didn't know it, that could like write you up, that were like Disney people dressed in regular clothes, so you were audited. I don't think I was there long enough for that to happen, but the joke that I did, essentially we go into like this creepy tunnel, and I was like, okay, who wants to go into the scary tunnel? And then like one person would like raise their hand or clap, and I'd be like, oh, that's definitely less than half of you, but who cares about the popular vote, am I right? And on one of my boats that day, it just got dead stares, because you could tell that they were like Trumpy people for the most part. And then on one of my boats, it was like younger Latino people, and they just fucking clapped. They were just like, whoa, you rock! I was like, thank you. So yeah, now I do that joke in my comedy.
Nice. And did you feel better delivering that joke because you wrote it?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But then also like the Jungle Cruise, like because it was just like I didn't think of it as like part of my comedy at all. It's just like,
Sure,
this is my
it was a
day
job.
job. Yeah. But I am super thankful for the experience, and it was really fun.
Do you still have your uniform?
Yeah,
They,
I stole it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they try and take it back. But...
Yeah, they make you take it back, but there are little barcodes in all of the pieces of clothing. And then when you're done, or when you quit, or when you need a new one, you just leave it in a box and it automatically scans. I just like scanned the barcode and then like took my stuff. So I do have it.
Nice.
Don't tell anyone.
Okay.
Disney is probably watching us right now.
Halloween 20.
Yeah, Halloween every year.
That's hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, let's talk crazy stories. Like, you've done comedy in all kinds of places, like craziest show experience, craziest open mic experience.
Ooh.
Maybe split that one between Denver and outside of Denver.
I don't think I have any for Denver, because like shit is pretty tame here from what I've seen, and I haven't been here for that long. And I
Never
also
had a crazy person at Mutiny?
no, not really. I also don't feel like I go to like the open mics where that's bound to happen, because I go to mostly earlier mics. But I've been on 2 shows where women take their shirts off. One was in Orlando and one was in Webster/Rochester, excuse me, at the
Like,
comedy club.
apropos of nothing, or was it prompted by something?
The one show in Orlando was just like, it was just like nuts. That show was just like, I don't even know what was happening. It was like comedy, but then like one of the comedians like didn't really do comedy and just kind of like stripped a little bit, and then like there was a lot. It was really funny for me, but also very uncomfortable. And then the one in Webster, it was like the feature said something or was doing some sort of crowd work, and then a lady took off her shirt. One of my favorite stories also happened at the comedy club in Webster. I think it was like my sophomore year in
what
college.
state is Webster in?
Oh, it's
Sorry.
in New York. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
alright.
It's outside of Rochester. One of my favorite stories, I think, though, it's real cute, but also kind of strange. But my mom and my dad went to this show that I was hosting for a weekend. I was hosting a weekend at that club, and it was just going really poorly. And I was in college, and I like came home from college for that weekend to do that. And like it was winter. I was opening for Esther Koo, and I don't know if you like know her comedy, but it's like pretty racist and like kind of just like bad, especially like a couple years ago. I haven't seen her recently, but I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I think I was just booked on it because like I'm a woman and she's a woman. Not a lot of thought went into that. But anyway, I did it because, you know, you get paid and stuff, and like it's a great opportunity or whatever, I guess. But anyway, I was just like kind of down in the dumps. It was the last day, last show, like they had all been going pretty poorly for me. I didn't expect that one to be any better. So, you know, I like wore a dress, but I had sweatpants on because I'd been wearing sweatpants all day, and I was just like, I'll take them off when I get there. And then I realized I forgot to put on underwear, so my mom gave me her underwear in the bathroom, and I wore them. And it was really sweet.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Moms are great.
Yeah. So that's, I think, one of my...
That's a great story.
Oh my
You should
God.
write a bit about that.
Thank you. And then I think my favorite ever comedy show, thank you for letting me in. I just feel so spoiled right now. I'm really indulging myself. I like don't talk about myself that often, especially with comedy, so like thank you for this.
All right.
But my favorite comedy show that I ever did was in this really nice, beautiful old theater. The guy who booked it, not very good at comedy. Sorry, Kevin. Hopefully you've gotten better by now, but like you were not great at that point. But I'm sure maybe you've gotten better. This was in Rochester, New York.
With names aside, what would you describe as not great at comedy? Like, what are some attributes of?
Oh, just like not comfortable to watch. Like, not great. Like, also like needlessly dirty. He would try to do a lot of one-liners that were just like needlessly kind of gross, and it's just like, God, Kevin, oh, this is uncomfortable. But maybe he's gotten better. I also think people don't realize that you can use likability. Like, just, I don't know, man. You don't have to be creepy.
Yeah, something I've noticed, like you go to, I go to a lot of open mics, I go to a lot of shows, as many as I can, and so I watch a lot of comedy. So,
Yeah.
and previously I was just a consumer, maybe I'd watch a Netflix special or two a year, go out to a theater show once or twice a year, like not a ton.
Right.
But watching so much comedy, something I've noticed is about likability. If the comedian can convince the audience that they're likable and almost like their friend, like it almost doesn't matter how good the joke is.
Right.
Like I'll see this all the time that a beautifully constructed, just brilliant joke won't get a laugh
Yeah.
when it deserves a laugh, and then like kind of like a hacky or dumb bit from somebody who the audience has already been won over
Yeah.
will get like applause breaks.
Yeah.
So that's a really
Yeah.
valuable lesson.
I think so too. And this guy is like older. He's probably around your age. And I think it's just like, also like, I hate to say it, but like this is just a thing in comedy. If you look better, you can get away with like way more shit. Like if you're more
Do
attractive,
you think
people
that
probably
counts for women too? Because
Oh,
I've definitely heard like this idea that I've definitely heard beautiful women like almost instructed to like not look sexy, basically.
Yeah,
Like don't, because you'll be judged on that and not your comedy kind of thing. No.
I don't know if there's like a huge rule. I've seen some like really beautiful, sexy women do really well with really good jokes. And I've seen like, I feel like I've definitely been in the place where I feel, and this may be just me projecting like my own insecurities about my like look or whatever, where I like have thought like, damn, she's just getting laughs because she's really hot. Like,
Yeah.
like, and it's, there's no way to prove that. So like, why does it even matter?
Huh.
But yeah, I've also seen like really like beautiful, hot, sexy women like get laughs with really good jokes.
Yes.
So I hate the stereotype when people are like, beautiful women can't be funny, and it's like, dude, they can totally be funny.
Right.
Like, they can totally be funny.
And they can get a sitcom someday.
Yeah, they can live their best lives, man. They can be so funny. I don't know. I think that's just kind of dumb. But like,
Do you think people say that because they think like they don't experience hardship in the same way
yes,
normal
yes.
looking people do?
I think 100% yes. And it's like, attractive people can still have tough lives.
Yeah.
Do I think that attractive people are generally treated better? Yes.
Yeah.
Like 100%. But like I was saying, like looking good, or at least like, and this is another thing Elliot mentioned, matching what you're saying to how you look is really helpful and really important, I think. So like, but I do think like looking good can buy you a little bit of time where the audience might like you and listen to you more.
Yeah. There's an interesting counterpoint to that advice that we heard recently, which was basically dress for your persona.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to Let's Talk About Sets?
No.
It's awesome. Terrific podcast. Really good. I forget the comedian, but he used to be from Minnesota. Now he lives in New York City, and he was actually at Lion's Lair last winter. So he came through Denver. He's like toured with Dave Attell and stuff, and so pretty accomplished. In his episode, he relayed a story about how a talent manager in New York City, when he was first starting out, instructed him to dress the opposite of his persona.
Wow.
And the idea was, when you come out on stage, it's kind of like your comedy, actually. Like, you have this bubbly, cheery, super nice personality, then you tell like a slightly dirty joke, and it's funnier coming from you. So it's the same idea. You come out, the audience assesses you, oh, I know who this guy is, and then they're like the polar opposite
Right.
of what the audience thought, and that in itself is humorous.
Yeah.
So it like adds another layer.
Did they tell him to dress worse?
Not necessarily worse, just the opposite of your persona.
That's
So like
wild.
if you're a real, like, I don't know, dirtbag, living on the street, dress up like a Wall Street guy.
Oh, I think that's
Or-
so. I think that would be funny. I don't necessarily think the opposite would be funny. Like, I don't think if you are,
like a Wall Street guy,
yeah, like
dressing down to a homeless
I don't
guy.
think that would be good. And I do think it also depends on like how good you are in comedy. Like, I think you can look like a total slob if you have really good punchlines.
Yes.
And if you're really good. Like Zeke Herrera, I've never seen dress up. No offense, Zeke, but like he's really good at comedy.
Yeah.
Like
That's a good.
like, so it doesn't, I don't know. But I think like if
He's also got a great voice for comedy.
he does,
That makes me very jealous of people. I feel like I have a boring voice, and
but you have good tone.
yeah, maybe.
I think you have a nice
I'm always
voice.
jealous of people who have a funny voice. And I also like to think about them at like Thanksgiving dinner. Like are their brothers and sisters, do they sound the same way, and their parents, and is it just like what happens when a girlfriend comes home? Like
That's a good question.
like, are they all just like real silly? Like people have silly voices in different ways. Like some people have high pitched voices, and some
Yeah.
people are extra throaty or whatever. But some people like just by talking, they're funny. Like you just
Yeah.
smile. Like if they were a police officer giving you a ticket, you might smile just because, boy, that's a silly voice.
But you know what's surprising about that? I will say, I've been told that I have a really silly voice, and I do, but it's really more about the pitch and the inflection. Because my sister and I have very, very similar voices. Like, people think that we sound the same on the phone, but it's really only when I'm in like a very calm monotone or like angry state. But my like just like energy is what makes I feel like my voice unique. And I think you kind of have the same thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I think Zeke, even though he does have a unique voice, he's just good at comedy, and I think he intuitively picks
Yes.
up a different cadence.
Absolutely.
And picks up a different
Terrific.
voice.
And his writing's
And his writing's
unbelievable.
great. Like, and I think like he intuitively knows like this is how to deliver and this is how I'll work.
Right.
I think Michael Isaacs has a unique voice, and it sounds pretty much the same when he's talking, but I mean everybody has a different cadence when they do comedy.
Right.
And I think you don't necessarily notice that, but I think that's a thing, you know?
Yeah. Do you have podcasts that you enjoy?
That I listen to,
Yeah,
like,
comedy related. Or I guess even not comedy related.
I didn't really, honestly.
What's on your podcast player?
I, like, don't really listen to podcasts.
Oh my goodness.
TBH. I, like, all of my jobs are they take up too much of my brain for me to listen to comedy, and then, like, when I have free time, I'm like, I should be writing, or I should be in an open mic, or I should be, like, sleeping.
Okay.
So, I don't really listen to comedy podcasts. I did listen to a bunch of podcasts on the Appalachian Trail. Listen to Things That Blow Your Mind. That was kind of neat.
I don't know that one.
Or Stuff to Blow Your Mind. It was just, like, random weird facts, essentially. And then I do like history, so I listened to one about the Watergate scandal. And then, obviously, This American Life, The Moth, and Radiolab.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why I said obviously, but, like,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
What about you? What else do you listen to?
I love Let's Talk About Sets.
Mhm.
I pretty religiously listen to as many of the Denver comedy podcasts that
Really?
I can. Mostly because I haven't. Tell me about it. Is it yours?
No, yeah,
You
it's
and
me and
Megan's?
Megan
Okay. Is it out yet?
Yeah, dude, it's
Okay,
out
I'll-
on something.
all right, I
I
gotta
don't
get
think it's on. I don't know. I think it's
I'll be able
just
to find
on
it.
her website.
I'll be able to find it. How many
Okay.
episodes do you have?
I think like 8.
Awesome. How's it going?
It's going well. We kind of dropped the ball for the past summer, so
Okay.
we got to get back into
What
it.
was the best episode or one of
Do
your
you mind
favorite?
if I put my foot
No,
right here?
I don't care.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Actually,
Just
you know
know
what?
that the camera can actually see your foot.
Okay,
So
never mind.
millions of YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. They
Yep.
can't. They can't see.
Really? They can see you
I'm-
now. But hot buns.
All right. Our foot fetish
Yeah.
users just went through the roof.
Yeah, this was actually directed by Quentin Tarantino, so we had to put that in there. But I don't know what my favorite episode. Actually,
Well, who was your first episode?
who was the first one?
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't really.
remember?
Oh no, it was
Do you
someone I
remember?
didn't really know at the time.
Okay.
But actually, Wes Williams was my favorite one.
Oh, okay.
Because we talked
It's
more
fun.
about like
Does he
relationships
use his
and comedy.
shoulders a lot when he just talks in normal conversation?
He's so nice. I think he kind of does.
Does
He's
he?
another person
bet he
with like a
does.
very specific tone and like cadence. I really
Yes.
like Wes. He's a good dude. He's also really funny.
Yeah.
He's another example of just like one of the many super funny people in Denver. So
Yeah.
yeah.
He's terrific.
Yep. Who have you had on this podcast?
Nick Dean. Actually, well, these aren't necessarily going to come out in any specific order, so I don't like to reference.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay.
No,
I'll
that's
tell
totally
you
cool.
off camera later.
Yeah.
But
Nick
I
Dean.
guess we spilled the beans on Nick Dean, so Sarah's episode will come out after Nick Dean.
Thank you.
Nick's terrific. He's the best.
He's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. But yeah, no, I don't really listen to podcasts. I don't
Okay.
watch stand
So
up either.
the reason I like listening to the Denver podcasts is because it's how I like Zeke Herrera, for example. I've only seen twice ever,
Uh-huh.
you know, because maybe we don't go to the same mics or whatever,
Right.
and once was at Comedy Works, or another time at Mutiny.
Mhm.
So I don't. He's an important cog in the Denver comedy scene. So like that's how I learn about who's been around for a while. Like I might meet somebody, and other than listening to a podcast, I wouldn't necessarily know. Oh, they've been around for like 4 years or longer.
Right.
As part of the Denver comedy scene. Yeah. Also, I'm not on Facebook, so like I have no like zero. I very limited.
Why are you not on Facebook?
I never have been my whole life.
I know you totally get that question probably a lot.
No, it's fine. It's totally rational question. I feel like finally the pendulum's going the other way, and
Really?
I can actually tell people with a straight face, like I've never been on Facebook, and people are like, wow, I'm kind of jealous. That was a good idea.
Have you ever thought about getting one just for booking purposes? That's how
Maybe in a couple years.
Almost 100% of my shows are booked on Facebook.
Yeah, that's everybody says that.
Yeah.
And I have had 0 shows booked on Facebook, but I'm not really at a stage where I'm getting booked on shows, or that I would expect to be getting booked anywhere.
But you could be, Mark. You could be.
I could be, maybe. I like the mics. I hit the mics as much as I can, and I create my own shows when I can.
That's great. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. I have a new monthly show, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Where is it?
In Vail, Colorado.
Wow.
VailComedyShow.com. We have Derek Stroop as our first headliner.
Oh my God, I
Pretty
love
awesome.
Derek Stroop.
And Christy Buckley as our second
Wow.
one. So
That's gonna
I'm really
be
excited about it.
fun.
We'll get you up there eventually.
Oh my God, yeah, thanks.
What's your, if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to, but what's your transportation situation?
Oh, I have a car.
Okay.
I love my car.
And if you get booked in like Loveland or something,
I just go.
You just go. Okay.
Yeah, it's nice. And now with like my new job, I do feel like I have a little bit more flexibility because I typically work until like at the latest, like I think I would work until 6.
Okay.
So, but typically it's like somewhere between 4:30 and 6.
Nice.
So like getting out of time.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a tricky thing going forward, trying to book for that show, because it is 100 miles from Denver.
Right.
You know, and it's like a serious.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment. I kind of like
It
stuff
pays
like
pretty well though.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
I kind of like stuff like that because it feels like more of a getaway, which is like why I'm so excited to do this. I don't typically do mics on Monday nights because I really try to only go to mics at this point, and it's become a real struggle because writing has become a real struggle because I feel like I'm telling myself that my ideas are bad, and it's like you really just have to be open to your ideas and not be self-critical, and that's like the only way that I can ever write. But I also have not been consistent enough about writing, which is something that I need to work on. But I'm really trying to only go to things if I have things to work on. For Collins, it's like whatever, I don't care. They'll see old jokes, I really don't care. Like, or they'll see like half-baked jokes and it'll be fine. Like, it's whatever.
The fun thing for me about going to Fort Collins is if I go to a Denver open mic, half the audience may have heard my material before.
Right.
But in Fort Collins, nobody has heard this material before.
Right.
You know? And in Vail, certainly, nobody will have heard, you know, I think that's kind of neat for comedians to be able to go up there and basically have a brand new audience.
Right. But that's the thing too. Comedy Works, even though it's the same venue, it's going to be a completely different crowd.
That's true. But
like,
how often do you get up at Comedy Works?
I know. But just to follow up on like Elliot's point about only doing good stuff.
Yeah.
Which was really nice to like hear.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
Solid
even like
advice.
Black
He's so
Pleasant.
good. He's a great.
Yeah,
he's
he is
good
really
at
good.
feedback. And a great writer.
Oh my
I love him
gosh.
so. Here's a funny story. I went into a Chick-fil-A for the first time in my life, like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. I'd driven through Chick-fil-A before.
Congratulations.
And I just, for whatever reason, I had some stuff to do, and I needed to sit down. And I went in, and I was like, "This is banana. This is a weird. This is." I immediately started like writing a bit, and I worked on it for like 3 days, just writing. Never did it out loud. And on the third night, I saw Elliot do a bit about Chick-fil-A that was so hilarious. It made me feel so bad about my writing. I was like I was starting to feel like, okay, this is getting somewhere. And then he starts into a Chick-fil-A bit. I'm like, oh, well, that burns my bit. Good thing I didn't like go for like 6 weeks on it.
Yeah.
But his was so good, and like the punchline at the end was so funny. I was just like, boy, I need to strike any confidence I have in my writing and keep working. Not in a bad way, but like just double down on my efforts to work harder.
Yeah.
Like I need to.
And I think it's good that you know that, just because like I'm not saying you're bad and I'm bad, but like I think not enough people like prioritize writing. Like, so it's so good that you're aware, like, I just want to work on that. And it's like, I need to be better about writing consistently.
What do you have any tricks for writing, or how do you?
I typically I use Twitter, like, a lot. That's where most of my jokes come from, is my Twitter.
What's your Twitter?
At Sarah Ben. But you know what? It's so funny.
SARAHMBEN.
I got really self-conscious when Denver people started following me. It's like, this is my workspace. We're only strangers.
So what do you do?
See.
Like you put out like a 1 or 2 liner, something less than however many characters.
Yeah,
and then you judge it by the likes it gets.
Essentially, yeah. Or I judge it by just like how I feel about it. And there have been some tweets that like have not done well, that like do like that, but not in a sexy way joke. Those were all tweets, and like they do better than I like expected them to. And I did not think that could be a bit. And it's like whatever. It's like an okay bit.
Written down online jokes can be very different than. Besides the obvious, like there can be spelling differences in words that you can take advantage of.
Yes.
But what works in a club or at a show is very different than, like, maybe in that direction is more obvious.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that works in a club, if you typed it out and put it online, people would not find it funny.
And I do think it depends on the comedian, because if you're talking about a comedian who's very structurally like punchline oriented, like then that stuff probably will work. But like Anthony Crawford's jokes would not be funny written out.
Right.
Or as funny written out.
Yeah.
They would not be as good. But like he's just so funny. Like he could say like, he's one of those people that could say like anything and it could be really funny.
Right.
Because he's just a very captivating person.
Yeah, his
and
personality
he's obviously,
is terrific.
yeah, and he's obviously been doing comedy for so long that he like does things that he's not even aware of that pull people in, made people want to watch, that he like probably could not consciously articulate.
Right.
Because that's just what happens when you do comedy for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, and you work hard and you're good. But anyway, yeah, no, the Twitter thing, definitely like all of my
So
good.
how do you get up to Twitter? Do you just type it directly into Twitter, or is this something you put in a notebook, percolate it on for a while?
I typically write best in like on a computer, so like Word or something like that. If I'm just like journaling or writing not on a computer, I get distracted by my handwriting. I get distracted by like the pen. Like if I can like bullet things on a computer, that's typically where most of my jokes come from. So like I'll go like Word and then Twitter, and like Word typically I'll like have something that I think could be a joke, and then I'll just do like bullet points, kind of like free association, and then see if I can connect anything and like get the wording right. But I have not been doing that frequently enough and I need to do it more. So that's that. What about you? How do you write? Do you write it a similar way?
I love the computer. I love to type things out. I love to type things out more than once. And by more than once, I mean like 25 times. So like I'll have a bit, like my fitted sheets bit, and I probably typed that out like 40 times. Like I typed it out the first time I did it, and then I'll like do it, and I'll change things, or I'll add little tags, and I'll just like constantly be rewriting it. And then someday I might be like, what was that thing I used to do like a long time ago? And I'll like go back and try and find it, because it's all in Google Docs and
that's
relatively easy to search.
That's kind of neat. So you can go back and see other things that you've done, and if you want to like retry them.
Yeah.
You know,
or one thing that now that I'm like almost a year and a half in, I'm realizing there's seasonality to jokes. You know, you have your Halloween jokes, your summer jokes, your football season is starting jokes kind of thing. And I like going back and finding. I do need to get better at structuring it, because I have like in the beginning I had so little material, it was so easy to search for stuff.
Right.
But like an NFL joke, like I should probably. Jesus, the camera is not happy today.
Oh, I love it. Cute little GoPro. This is so neat.
Poor little guy.
Yeah.
I need to tag the jokes with labels, not tag in a comedic sense.
Right.
Like the NFL joke should be like football, sports. If it's like the Miami Dolphins, Miami, you know, so that I can then like go back another time. If Miami hits the news cycle, oh cool, there's a football joke, I can weave into something else.
That's awesome.
But that's something that I'm not doing right now, and I would love suggestions from how other comedians do that, because I feel like I'm just getting to the hoarder state where I have so much material that's not really any good necessarily, but there's just a ton of it, and I don't know how to find it, catalog it, organize it.
Yeah, I definitely, especially because of Twitter, I definitely have jokes that like I forget about, and then I pull them back out like a couple years later, and like it's fun.
That's fun, right?
Yeah, it's fun. The
Yeah.
ghosted/spirited away joke that I do a lot. I did it.
Yeah.
I wrote that on Twitter like years ago. I did it a couple times in Rochester, and it went like okay, but then I think I like forgot about it for like 2 or 3 years. And I wrote that, and now like it goes well.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of people with like a big catalog of material, because it's so fun to go back.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really cool is when you can, like, you write a new bit, but then you steal an old joke and stick it into that bit, like as a tag. Like that's the most fun for me at this point.
Neat. I don't think
because
I don't know if I've done that.
yeah, like I have this joke now where I have this thing like it was a simpler time back then, and then I added in these tags like before we, and then I just complain about modern society in like different ways. But I have this joke that I could never figure out how to make work, like very short, and now it's like it's perfect in there. I do like it's like a triplet. I'm gonna do it tonight actually, where I do like, you know, before A, before B, and then the C is like it's a total non sequitur. It has nothing to do with the bit. It's really just selfish me who's always wanted to put that joke in somewhere, and it's so stupid and silly, and people laugh. I love it, or at least I've done that like 3 or 4 times.
I love that.
So
People laugh.
I like it when people laugh.
Yeah, me too. That's really nice though. It is exciting when you can do stuff like that. But like to kind of answer your question for how to catalog stuff,
Yeah.
I think that's like a struggle for a lot of comics. I just have a Word document with pretty much all my jokes in it. And then I obviously keep all my notebooks. But like, yeah, it's kind of a struggle for a lot of people. And then like obviously kind of trying to keep like some things in like similar chunks, and then like when you're developing longer sets, try to like weave together.
What's the
things.
longest set you've ever done? You've done 30?
I think like 25. Almost, I think like 25.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not done 30. I think I probably maybe could.
I'm
It's
sure
just
you
like,
could.
thank you.
And especially if you
It
weaved
would,
in some crowd work or just some
it would
like
take a lot of like,
improv-y kind of stuff.
it would take a lot of like going through stuff on my end. I definitely could. You're right. I could. It might
Like-
not all be good, and
Yeah.
it just might be.
Have you seen Ben Roy?
Yes,
Like
I
in a
love
longer.
him. Yes.
He's so funny. I love him to
Yes.
death. And I watched him headline Comedy Works, and he did like 65, 70 minutes, but he only did like half an hour of bits.
I love that.
It was like
Sam Talent
almost
is like
all-
the same
yeah,
way.
and it was so fun for me as an
Yes.
audience member.
Yeah. Judah Friedland is like very similar with that. Like, I think you're right, and I think people who can do that really well end up getting bigger laughs. I think
Yes.
crowd work is such an important skill to have,
Yeah.
and
it's like at first when you watch Sam Talent do some of that crowd work, you're like, oh my gosh, that is like, it is next level stuff. I don't want to take anything away from Sam.
Yeah.
He is unbelievable. But then maybe 3 weeks later, you see him, and in his crowd work, he tells the same little joke.
Yes.
You know, and you're like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
see there is a little, like, you can kind of see behind the curtain, and you
Yeah.
kind of see that, okay,
and
there's
that's not a bad thing.
no, not at all. There's a skill, and like you build on it. That's experience.
Yeah.
It's basically leveraging experience.
I have a couple jokes where, like, if I ask people things in the audience, I have a response
It's
if
like
they
a
say
choose
certain
your own
things.
adventure.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's totally fine. And I
And you
think
can get
that's
such
really
a bigger
cool.
laugh because it's in the moment
Yeah.
and spontaneous, or it appears to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that you did that joke in Webster.
Yes.
5
People
years
have
ago.
told me that they thought, like, they think, like, oh, the popular vote, did you just come up with that on the spot? And it's like, no, dude. No, like, nothing. Some things, but, like,
Yeah.
no. And I do think, like, unscripted crowd work or whatever is, like, a skill. I think, like, and I think it just comes from doing comedy a lot and not being afraid to try crowd work.
Yeah.
Muni is such a great mic for, like, doing a little bit of crowd engagement.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite open mic. Don't
Awesome.
tell anybody.
Okay. No, that's great.
I love that mic.
That's great. It's such a different, it's a weird mic.
I love it.
Very different.
I just think it's funny because of like, there's like zero pressure and like.
That's the only comedy place I've ever seen somebody take off their shirt.
Really?
Actually. Call back to your earlier story.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a dude. He was
a dude.
He just took his shirt off, just changing or something. I don't know what he was up to.
Well, Mark, if you keep doing comedy,
yes,
you've got a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
Which
I'm
you
excited.
will keep
I'm
doing
excited.
comedy. But yeah, I love Mutiny. I think it's got like a certain charm to it.
Jose is so
too.
funny.
Jose is so funny, and Jose is like so grounded. Like when I talk to Jose about like how we interpret success and how we like, it's just like, dude, he's like next level. He's like so funny, so good, such a good writer, so fun to watch on stage, so likable, like, and he's also just like so grounded in his ambition and like his version of what success is. And like, I think that's
Tell us
great.
more. Tell me more about that.
It's like he and I similarly, like how I mentioned before, it's like not about getting booked. It's not about like blah blah blah. It's not about like accolades or whatever. It's about like feeling good about your comedy and like constantly working hard and like, yeah, feeling good about what you're doing, which is why, like I said, like I can have sets that like no one likes, but or like no one in the audience likes, but I still feel really good about it. And conversely, I have had sets where like the audience has been really into it, and then I like walk away feeling like that was bad. So like
Here's a question I have for you, and this is a personal, selfish question.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about comedy so far is that when I can recognize that I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily above any good threshold, but I keep getting better.
That's
and I can see
great.
that. Like I write something quicker, or I come up with something faster, or I do some kind of crowd work that because I had an experience previously where I didn't do well, now I'm doing well. Does that like, and it's like addictive. I love that, like that curve of growth. Do you go through like whole years where you feel like you plateaued or went down, or like are you always like,
oh, you're definitely not always going up.
okay,
Like, I don't know if I've ever experienced a whole year where I feel like I've plateaued,
okay,
but that could also be me like lying to myself. But no. And sometimes you'll find like you'll get better at joke writing but not stage or I mean, this is in my experience. Like I'll get better at joke writing but not stage persona. Or I'll get better at stage. Like when I moved here, I think partially because I did take 7 months off of comedy pretty much directly before I moved here, I got exponentially better at like my stage persona because like I hadn't done comedy for 7 months. Like I like forgot how to be on stage.
Huh.
But like writing, I don't feel like I wrote like a shit ton of jokes when I first moved here, you know? So now hopefully I'm gonna be at a phase where I work on writing more and hopefully I can still maintain an okay persona, but like there are gonna be months where you don't feel good about your comedy. Like that's just that. Like, and then you just have to like push through it and remember that this is all like a drop in the bucket. Like, and I do think people are not great at having that perspective, and they take like failure or like not doing well in front of audiences really personally, and they think like, I think they lose perspective on stuff, but like also taking 7 months off of comedy and then getting back into it and knowing like deep down like I am gonna get back into it just like boosted my confidence about like taking breaks and also like having dry spells with comedy. Like you can have a 7 month long dry spell and like still be good at it within a year. Like it's just if you work
when
hard.
you first came to Denver, what did you think of the scene, like compared to whatever your impression was?
Well, my first open mic was at Black Buzzard, so I just thought people were really like standoffish. And I don't know, Denver is like really hierarchical, and like my other experiences with stand-up were really mostly, I did a little bit in New York City when I had that internship, but not very much. It was Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, and Orlando, Florida. And the people in Orlando were really friendly and warm to me pretty much right off the bat. Denver, I feel like I definitely had to like prove myself a lot more. which is fine, like whatever, but I also think there's like value in just being friendly to people right off the bat, and I don't feel like there were many people that were like that. There were a couple, but this place, I think people in Denver do kind of forget that there are like other comedy scenes where like if you were to move there you would be no one, like and I think that's, you know, that's just like life, but I think people sometimes lose perspective, and that can come across to like newer people as like that can manifest in like a cold behavior towards newer people, which is not great. But I just kept on, I literally wrote in my joke notebook, you've got to have Springer before you can have Katahdin. Like, you've got to have like some tough mountains before you can have like the last really rewarding mountain, like, you know what I mean?
Is that an Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, that is. You start at Springer in Georgia and you end on Katahdin, and Katahdin was even really difficult, but like...
How many bug bites later is that?
Oh, it was hundreds. I had horrible bug bites. People commented on them. It was really bad. but like, I don't know. My impression of Denver was just like, people are really, really good, but like not super friendly. And then I made friends after like a couple months. And now here we are.
Yeah.
With so many friends.
Yeah.
So I do feel really happy that I moved here, and I've never regretted it. But I will say, like, the first couple months were hard and they were lonely and isolating, but I guess that's just moving anywhere. But I think because I came off of such a huge personal high, it was really helpful to have the perspective of the Appalachian Trail of just like, life is a journey and it's not always going to be easy. It's actually always going to be difficult. And like, you will fall a lot, but you just got to keep going. So like having that perspective like in my mind and like my soul, you know, like really knowing it deeply helped. But yeah, it was not like, I'm sure you remember when you first started comedy, I'm sure, in Denver. It was not like, come sweet baby, let's all just be friends. It was like, oh, you're not that good, like, I'm not gonna talk to you ever.
Right. I still get that, for sure.
I'm sorry, Mark.
No, it's fine. It's I think it makes me better. Like I just did a road trip. I went out to Chicago, but I went through Kansas and Iowa and Nebraska on the way back. And so like I get to do like different scenes sometimes, like California, New York City, whatever. And I get to see other open mic scenes. And I feel like our gymnasium, if you could call our open mic scene like a place to work out, is so much better. Yeah. So much in a mean way. Yeah. Like it really pushes you to get stronger as a comedian.
Yeah, I do feel like the level of talent like at open mics is just like so much more above like the level of what I was seeing in like Rochester, obviously.
Right.
And that's like obviously because this is a bigger city. Orlando, there are still a lot of really funny comedians who are also really nice.
Right. Yeah, I try and go out of my way to be nice.
I try to be
people.
Friendly too, especially
but I think some
women.
people are just like
a little.
They're just burned out on maybe
new people
being nice to people, and then they disappear.
Yeah, you see.
So they're like they want people to prove themselves.
I've heard that argument, and I just think it's some bullshit because you can be nice to people just to be nice to people. Like you're not gonna get too attached to someone who you have a little bit of a friendly conversation with. But I've heard that argument, and I just think it's like really fucking lazy.
I think there's also like an attrition feeling. Like people feel like there is that hierarchy. There are, let's say, 300 comedians in Denver, and the less there are, the more likely I am to be booked or have success
or whatever.
That's
not how it works.
I know, but they feel like if they're, not welcoming to people, they'll disappear. And frankly, they can get up quicker at an open mic if there are less people.
I don't know. I just think all that's bullshit. And I think all that is real bullshit because, like, if you are friendly and supportive to someone who ends up being really good, they will be friendly and supportive of you.
Yes.
So don't feel threatened by people who are better than you at comedy. Like, support them because they will support you someday when they're actually famous or something.
Yeah, and they can teach you things. That's the whole point of this series. All I'm doing is taking comedians that I consider to be better than me and trying to learn from them.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. So we're getting close. We're gonna have to start landing this thing.
This was such a good conversation.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you.
Let's talk. Let's challenge each other
to
do something at the open mic tonight. So you give me a challenge. I'll give you a challenge. after the open mic, we'll record again just a little bit. We'll debrief how the mic went, and let's talk a little bit about what we're going to try and do at this mic. Do you make a plan when you go to a mic? Like, do you know what material you're going to do? Do you have things you want to work on, like act outs or?
I like to have things that I want to work out, but sometimes I don't like decide what I'm going to do until I'm there.
Okay.
Tonight I think there's at least one thing that I want to work out because it's like not always good. So
Can you
I'm gonna work on it?
Without spoiling anything, can you share so then we can talk about it afterwards?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
go
it's
ahead.
kind of crowd worky. It's my eye contact bit.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, it's not always good though. So
Okay.
thank you. Sometimes it's just awkward and bad.
So is there like do you have to pick the right person? Do you watch the audience
I
to
think
try
it's
and...
honestly just like if the audience is cool, if they're willing to like lean into the weirdness, then like it goes well. And if the audience is like a little not into weird, it doesn't go well. So I think it's like, Sarah, just like pick your audiences better when you do this. Like if they're a good crowd, like go for it. And maybe I just shouldn't start on it too. So I think there's like a couple factors at play. Because it's like kind of an improvised joke, I don't really feel like I can write anything for it, but I also think I can find a better structure for it.
Okay.
So what
cool.
about you?
I'm excited.
Can I challenge you?
Yeah, and I'll challenge you as well. But
Okay.
what I want to work, so I just went on that road trip and
Yeah.
I did all these. I got to do a couple showcases, and so like I have this new bit about driving across Kansas, which I'm really proud of because it is 1 week old today.
Oh,
And I feel like it's really good. There was no way I could, in 1 week, write something this strong like 6 months ago. Like, no way. No way. Who knows? Maybe I'm too much hubris. But I have new, like, little tags, like little silly, funny thoughts or words that I'm adding in to try and get more laughs, like
Good.
during the setup of the premise, for example. So that's what I want to experiment with. Are those little tags and you know, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes you write something you think is really funny, like what I like to do. You were asked about writing before. Like I will read out loud or say out loud the bit. This is what I was doing when I was driving to get you tonight. I would do the bit and then play it back, and I will like laugh like if it's good and I think it's funny, but sometimes the audience doesn't find it funny. And so you never know. So I want to just kind of measure, and then later I'll listen to it and decide if they're keepers or not.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you can always test it
That way.
out a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So do I get to challenge you? to do
Yeah.
something
How about
now?
a challenge?
I want to challenge you to do at least a little bit of crowd work.
Ooh, okay.
A little bit.
A little
At
bit of
least a
crowd
little
work.
bit. And it doesn't have to, it can be whenever you want, or just something maybe a little ad-libbed, I guess.
Okay.
What's my challenge?
All right, I'll think later about how I can squeeze that in. I have a little bit of a problem that I have like 4.5 minutes of material I want to do, and we get 4 minutes. I feel like I can get away with doing 4:30.
Oh, yeah,
but,
yeah, it's Nate.
but
And
if
we're coming from Denver.
Yeah, big city Denver.
Yeah. Far
Should we just
away,
walk
Denver.
in like, hey everybody, we're big deals?
No,
We're-
dude. No. I hate that too. It's like everybody. Yeah, whatever.
I do not. That was an exaggeration,
Yeah.
obviously. But one thing I do appreciate is like, oh no, I was when I was in Iowa, I just said I'm from Denver, and people were like, oh.
I know.
Denver.
I don't
Cool.
love that though, because when
And I don't like to play that. I never play that card. I never overplay that card.
yeah, and I hate it when like new comics who did like a bringer set at like fucking
the Gotham
Caroline's or something.
Yeah.
It's like I've performed at Caroline's, and it's like, okay, bitch, get in line. We've all like I haven't, but like you can
Right.
pretty much walk in if you have 20 friends who are willing to spend $30 a piece.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
you're paying for that time.
Yeah, you're paying for that time. It's a funny thing that a lot of especially new comics do. They're like, my credits are incredible, and it's like they're not.
Right.
But anyway.
But you do have to fake it till you make it. Okay, so anyways, that was my challenge. Before I do your challenge, I do a little advertising. Do you have anything you want to plug, by the way? Besides your Twitter, which you mentioned?
I have like a fun lineup of shows, but I can't really think of any
Well,
of them.
this might not come out in time, so
Wow, look at this!
just search for
Sarah Benson comedy.
Yeah,
I have a website.
exactly.
Yeah.
So here we go. Not good yet. It's the book about not being great at comedy.
Wow,
But
can I
secrets to get better. Yeah, you might even be in it. There's a good.
Really?
There's like a 50% chance. I'll look it up and we'll talk about it on the way
this is
back. We'll
so
show the page
cool.
that you're on. It's for sale at Mutiny. Mutiny
Wow.
Information Cafe, Broadway Street in Denver. It's terrific. You can get it online if you're a like starving comedian or something, and you can find out how to email me. I can probably send you a free audiobook of it.
Wow.
Just doesn't hurt to ask in the comedy community. Okay, your challenge. Sarah Benson, open mic challenge, Fort Collins. You're already going to be doing some crowd work stuff and some awkward eye contact. Are you a mic in person or a mic out person? Like in the stand?
Ooh, I'm a mic out person.
That's what I thought.
But
So
I don't think I'm gonna leave the mic in. I know it's gonna be bad. That's why. It's not even a challenge.
All right. My challenge is just the first, like, when you open a set for like 30 seconds, can you leave the mic in?
Well, I can't because I'm gonna do the eye contact
Okay.
joke.
All right.
Yeah.
Bad challenge.
No,
Challenge
dude.
rejected.
It's a good
I can't take this rejection. I'm not going up tonight. It's over. We're
It's a
driving
good
back.
challenge.
All right, new challenge. New challenge. Okay, I want you to earn a laugh with silence. So what I
Ooh.
mean by and patience.
Okay.
So like maybe a joke doesn't land,
But you sit in the silence.
but wait for it.
Okay.
And this could turn out terribly
I like
wrong.
that.
But that's a that's a good
No, I like
and
that.
it's objective. We can definitely measure it later and talk about it.
Cool, dude.
So,
I like that a lot.
yeah.
Thanks for
Okay.
having me, Mark.
So we'll be back after the mic, and yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're back. We finished the mic.
We did.
We got the lights on. High five.
We both did well.
It's fiesta time.
It's fiesta
That's a good
time.
room. Nate puts together a great room.
It's a good room, but I feel like you had to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see that in some of the comedians
It was
before
not an
us.
easy room.
I mean, obviously, we were getting laugh after laugh. I mean, applause breaks
people were
and
fainting. They were passing out.
from
It
the
was-
heat.
Yeah. It was good. I feel like we did well, though. I like really enjoyed my set.
I did
hope
too.
Passed.
Well, I have a hard time analyzing myself without listening to my set afterwards.
I get that.
Let's see.
I pretty much go based on feeling. Like, I felt good. I felt good after. I have had some sets, though, where I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad. And typically I chalk that up to not being that good, probably, then.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to listen to my set later specifically, but we should talk about our challenges. I want to ask you that question that I was talking to you about when we were waiting for the mic, about if you've ever been stiffed getting paid for a show.
Yeah.
So
It's a good question. I honestly don't think I have. I don't think I have, but I also don't like really keep track of the money aspect that much, to be honest. Like, there have been shows where people have like been like, here's $10, and if it's like a show where nobody showed up and I knew they lost money, I'm just like, keep it. Like,
Yeah.
put it towards your next show.
right.
Like,
That's sweet of you.
thank you. I think I do know people who have been stiffed, though, in like really weird and inappropriate ways. So yeah, it does happen, especially I think to women, and especially to like women of color, like my friends in Rochester. At least one of my friends in Rochester was stiffed, and then another one of my female friends in Rochester was stiffed. So like, just like anything else, I guess, intersectionalism and like women of color have it really hard, and it just sucks when they're taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So yeah. But yeah, no. Have you ever been stiffed?
Well, I generally don't get paid to do comedy. I mean, it does happen on rare exception. I've been lucky enough never to get stiffed.
That's
yet.
good.
Although I do have a upcoming gig that I'm a little worried about. It pays pretty well on the general scale of things, and I have a suspicion that it won't be well attended, the show, and I wonder if they'll expect me to give some of the money back.
I don't think they will, because a
hope
lot
not.
of bars
It's
have.
a long travel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a long way to get there.
They know
so.
that, and a lot of bars have budgets that like go
Yeah.
into entertainment, so they already have money like set aside.
Right. Yeah.
So even if like they don't have ticket sales or whatever, or like door
They'll still
people.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that there are a ton of people there because I'll make for a fun show.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Where's the show?
It's in Steamboat, Ski Town. Like,
That'll be awesome.
I don't know what that is, 4 or 5 hours from Denver. It's a long drive.
Wow. How did you get that?
I asked for it, essentially. That's a good question. Interesting question. I have a buddy in Chicago, Pat Truer, great comedian, who used to live in Colorado. We met snowboarding, and we have snowboarded all over the place. And once we both started doing comedy, I was like, or one of us had the idea, like, wouldn't it be really cool if someday we could do a comedy show in Steamboat? And I was like, that would be super cool. We should definitely make that a goal.
That's neat.
And so I, at some point, Googled Steamboat Comedy and like found somebody. I think we mentioned this in the first half that I'm not on Facebook, and so that makes reaching people a little more difficult. But I found somebody's email or something, found a way to reach somebody who was involved in Steamboat Comedy, and they were terrifically nice, and I was nice to them. I was like, if you ever make it to Denver, I'll show you around the mics. If you need a place to crash, I can help you out, etc. And so that original contact, like, dropped out of comedy or whatever, maybe Steamboat, I don't know, but somebody else contacted me and said, hey, so-and-so was in touch with you, I'm the new person in Steamboat. I was like, great. Same thing, if you, like, I run some small shows in Denver, if you get out here, let me know. And then like a month or two later, I reached out and said, hey, I'd like to do a show this fall in Steamboat. Is there any way we could co-produce something, put something on? And then I helped them with some of the organization stuff, but they did most of the work. Ooh, I was supposed to take a left here, which is not going to happen.
That's okay.
Well,
Just have
make
some
a U-turn.
best friends.
Yeah. So that's a very long story.
Wow.
I kind of set it up, and then they found a venue. I said, if you can find the venue, I can get this comedian from Chicago to come as well. And
that's cool.
yeah, and so it pays pretty well. We're both doing 20 minutes.
That's awesome.
And then the next night, we're doing the Vail Comedy Show.
Oh, I didn't even know if there was a Vail Comedy Show.
Oh, well, let me tell you about it. VailComedyShow.com. That's the show we talked about earlier.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I started.
Yes!
Kind of. Not really. I should reword
The
that.
Vail Comedy Show.
I should reword that.
Yes, okay.
There have been previous iterations of the Vail Comedy Show. Like
Okay.
Edward Bell from our scene has hosted a comedy show up in Vail.
Oh.
It was maybe called like the Vail Comedy Hour, free comedy. I don't know. It was
Okay.
something with Vail and something funny in it. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't called Vail Comedy Show, but it's at the same venue that at least 2 previous Denver comedians have run a show out of.
Okay, cool.
And my oops, that's funny.
What was that?
No, it thought you said okay, big search company that starts with a G. You know, yeah. So like it
That
was
is kind of silly.
voice activated. Where were we? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
1 second while we safely
Yeah.
maneuver.
Okay, good for you though,
Okay.
dude. Okay, the Vail Comedy Show is the show that you started. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was like, when you said that, I was like, whoa, is there a comedy club in Vail? Like, what?
Yeah.
No, dude, that's
No.
exciting.
But I would love to, like I have goals. Like I would like to do it every single month. Vail's a very small town, but you know, like a lot of comedy clubs are pretty small. Like when I was just outside of Kansas City, there was a 60-seater comedy club. They had like 30 people in it.
Really?
And it was like, that was great. That made for a terrific show.
That's
you
really
can get
nice.
30 people to show up. And for sure, like during ski season, there are so many people in town.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
Do you ever, so like one of my like dreams is for like somebody that I would consider to be famous, like a comedian, to be on like a ski vacation and be like, oh, I want some stage time, and like find me, and somehow the timing would work out, and like I'd have like a special drop in. I already kind of know the answer to this, but have you ever run into some famous people in comedy through your travels?
Yeah. I opened for Pete Holmes, which was cool. I think that's my biggest credit. I feel like you knew that.
Pete Holmes from Crashing.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
He is really funny.
On my last road trip, I listened to like 2 different podcasts he was on, and then a bunch of episodes of his podcast.
Oh,
he cracks me up.
He's really fun. That was a nice thing about living in like Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, is that like I did have opportunities to open for people and stuff.
Was he famous then?
Yeah, he was. Okay. He was famous. It was only like a couple years ago. Yeah. He didn't have Crashing, but he had the Pete Holmes show and stuff. Okay. He's a cool dude. The guy who we were with, or who was his feature, was really cool too. I've opened for some really neat people. I opened for that one guy from SNL, Chris Kattan. He wasn't very good, but like he wasn't very good. But he's like Mango, right? Yeah, dude. Yeah. But like he's one of those celebrities who's just like, I'm a celebrity, so I can do stand up. But it's like, no, you can try, you can do it, but like it just turned into like weird kind of like stories about like name dropping stories, and it's like, God. And I mean, he did some of his SNL stuff, which was cool. Yeah. But yeah, there have been like.
Was he nice?
Yeah, he was pretty nice. I didn't interact with him too much because I opened for him like one show. They tried to get like as many comedians as possible.
That's nice.
I did get to open for Pete Holmes for an entire weekend, and that was really cool.
That's cool. Did he give you any sage wisdom?
Yeah. Actually, he's like, come to think about it, he is like the reason why I moved to Denver. Like one of the reasons.
What did he say?
So he said, and this was back in like 2014 or 15. So I was still like pretty new in comedy and stuff. I was young, and I like didn't have any direction for where I wanted to go after college to like do comedy. And he's like, move to Denver or San Francisco. Like move to like a smaller scene, and then get really good, and then move to a bigger scene. So that's part of the reason why I ended up here. Thanks, Pete. Thank you, Pete.
Pete, he'll definitely watch this.
Oh yeah, he's downloading the episodes.
He's tuning in.
Yeah, but I actually like on the Appalachian Trail. I only camped alone one night because I had a hiking partner for like 98% of the trail, except for the last like 250 miles. Which is not a lot for the trail. But the night that I camped alone, I was like pretty freaked out. I was stealth camping, so it wasn't at a real campsite. It was just like in the woods. It was in the 100-mile wilderness, which is like the end of the trail, and it's very remote. In Maine, like full of moose and like weird animals. It's rutting season, so they're all kind of aggressive, especially like males. So I was camping, and I was really scared, and I couldn't sleep, and I like heard things in the wild, and I listened to Pete Holmes' podcast to like calm me down. So that was a really nice moment that I had with Pete.
Nice. And you at home can do the same.
Yeah, you made it weird. It's really good. Weird. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the open mic.
Okay.
Fort Collins, super cute place. Hodi's, describe it. How would you describe it? You've never been, right?
No, I'd never been. It felt like a Western bar a little bit. Like, I don't know if it's just because of the people who were in there, but like
there were more cowboys than usual tonight.
Yeah.
Handlebar mustaches.
Yeah, and like cut off shirts.
Some real characters.
Yeah. Like cool, but like the room was pretty big, but there were a lot of people in the front, and they were sitting close together. It was kind of warm in there. The stage was lit, but like you couldn't see the audience. It was fun. They were really good.
Yeah, for an open mic, like a lot of times there's zero audience. There was 25 people seated in the first 5 rows.
Yeah.
Which is packed in. That's pretty terrific.
That being said, I don't feel like they were, like, I feel like also a lot of people have hyped up Hodi's to me. A lot of people have been like, it's the best. And it's like, it wasn't. I mean, it was fun, but like the audience was not that like awake.
Yeah.
But
they needed a leader.
I think
like the last few times I've been there's been like somebody who consistently laughed kind of with some joy in their laughter, and that gets everybody. It's infectious, you know?
Yeah.
They needed an infector. They needed somebody to poison them with a laugh.
Yeah.
They were too happy politely laughing.
And they were good. Like I had fun, and I really enjoyed that. I also think like there's a benefit to putting high energy people up first. Like I would consider us both relatively high energy, or up in the beginning, because it does kind of shake people. So I don't know if the people who went before us were kind of deadpan. The guy who went in between us was pretty high energy with his rant, and that kind of got people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were definitely into like more energy, which was fun.
Yeah.
They were fun.
We went pretty early too. We went like 5th and 7th or something like that.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
And maybe like 15 might be the sweet spot, or 12.
Yeah.
You know, where the crowd's looser, got some drinks in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, a terrific crowd. I love that mic.
Yeah, that was
Totally
really
worth it.
fun.
Let's talk about our challenges. So I went up first.
Yes.
Right? And my set, like my Kansas, my brand new bit that is 1 week old today, went pretty well. And I added like 4 micro jokes into it, and those went well. But I forgot my place twice, partly because I reordered it. This is the first time I switched the 2 triplets toward the end. I switched them around because the end of one triplet is the biggest laugh consistently, so I wanted that at the very end. And so I kind of like twice in there I forgot what I was doing and just like sat up there. Oh, you know what? I'm just now remembering I forgot another joke in there. I'll tell you off camera, so don't spoil it. And it was it's a really fun one too. Bummer. Okay. Well, anyway, so it wasn't perfect, but I got laughs. Like I felt like they were good laughs relative to the comedians before us, and so I felt like the writing was good, the delivery was probably pretty good. My closer, I only did 2 bits. The second bit was my trash thing, and so here's where I tried the crowd work at the very beginning. Kind of a half-assed effort.
Yeah, you did not commit.
I just like kind of asked a question.
You're like, hi.
Well, see, the problem is the first time what I said was, who has driven across Kansas? Or I asked one guy, I said, you look like you've driven across Kansas, and he was just like stone-faced. And then somebody off to my left said, woo! But the light was so bright, I couldn't see them.
Yeah, I
And
felt that too when I
they were
did the
too
little
deep.
bit.
They were like the 4th row, and you couldn't see the 4th row,
Yeah.
so I couldn't engage them, so I just abandoned the crowd work there. And then before my second bit, I did a very similar thing, but I just asked like a question that was too arcane, or just nobody responded yes.
Yeah.
And you know that like maxim, like never ask a question if you don't know the answer, you know, it's like a weakness, and I really felt that there.
Really?
Like I felt like I had really good energy coming off the closing punchline of my first bit, and then I kind of like had to win back the crowd the second bit, and in my heart I felt like I failed Sarah. I failed my challenge.
You didn't fail me.
I did not
you
do my
never
crowd
fail
work.
Me. You could never
I
fail
attempted,
me.
but it was not a success.
That's okay,
I'll
dude.
try that again. You know, if I had to do it over again,
you could never fail. That's as long as you attempt.
if I had to do it over again, what I should have done, one thing is we arrived a little late and we went up pretty early. I should have sat near the front and identified somebody in the audience to say something about. Once in Chicago, there was this kid in the front row, like 20 to 25 years old, wearing a hoodie with the hood up, and the guy came out and the first thing I said was, it's good we have the hipster Unabomber here tonight, and the crowd loved it. You know, it was like in the moment, it was fun. So that, like I should have done something like that to kind of get it going and maybe engage that person. But when I walked up stage, it was the first time I saw anybody, and nobody stood, like it was kind of like some, I don't know, nobody stood out as super unique. Nothing I could come up with quickly. So
That happens.
yeah. I'll try again. I'll work on the crowd work some more. That was an excellent challenge.
Thank
I think
you.
you had some inside info. You've seen me a bunch. You know so I appreciate that you gave me a challenge that you
Thank
thought
you.
would make me grow and stretch.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And I think like crowd work at open mics is like, that's the place to do it. Don't try it on shows, you know, like unless you're very comfortable with it or
Okay.
your jokes like necessitate it. I mean, do whatever you want, but like
Right.
that's what I would tell
If-
new people.
If you had walked up to that stage and you wanted to do the crowd work right off the beginning, what would you have said or done?
Well, you see, I don't like think about it like that. I don't
Okay.
like plan the stuff as much.
Okay.
Like if I'm gonna order off a menu sometimes and I've never been there and I don't like know anything about it, like sometimes I pick like very last second when the waiter is there, like or the waitress is there. I'm like very just like, I'm pretty impulsive with stuff.
Okay.
So
But now that you've been there, imagine you were there and being
is
impulsive.
there anyone that I would have picked on?
No, just like
Or- What would I have done?
Let's say your challenge had been crowd work.
Okay.
You walk up to Nate, shakes your hand, you grab the mic out of the mic stand, and go.
I did a little bit of crowd work. I feel like nothing that I said was really that punchy. So I think I would have probably tried harder to have a joke about like Albany that was more of a joke than what I said. I got like a little
That was
laugh.
actually really good.
Thank
crowd
you.
work wise. That worked out really well.
Thank
What would you have
you.
done if nobody
Had said anything.
Yeah.
Then I'm just like, that's okay. Then I do that like, kind of thing. And people typically think that that's kind of silly and fun. Or they just don't. It's fine. I think I would have, actually the Albany thing had kind of a punchline. I think I would have tried to figure out more of a punchline for that dude where I was just like, give it up for the honest guy. I love it when men say that they had a really good one night stand from Tinder, because then it's so easy to be like, yeah, like of course you fucking did. Like you can rub against something and come, like, you know, like that's a little bit more fun to explore, but it happens less often when people are like, I had a great time having sex with a stranger. So I had a lot of fun. That was a fun time.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
really
so let's talk
enjoyed it.
about your challenge.
Okay. My challenge was to lean into the silence, which I feel like I did, but maybe not enough. I think I kind of leaned into it a little bit before one of my jokes. Oh, yeah, it's the Tinder joke where I talk about the, and that's it. But honestly, I just lean into that as a way of building tension, so I don't even think I did the challenge correctly.
Okay.
So, probably isn't really fair.
All right.
But thank you.
All right. Well, we tried.
Yeah, we tried.
We tried. That's what open mic comedy is about.
We tried.
We
the
made attempts.
The nice thing, I think your challenge was really good because, like, leaning into silence is like a great way of building tension before relieving it by doing something. Either like a joke or like a gesture or just like something.
Yeah, I feel like once your writing reaches a reasonable level, it's a very powerful technique because, at least for me, my insecurity about being a stand-up comedian makes me want to rush through material. Like, I'll deliver a punchline and not get a laugh, and want to like hide that silence by jumping to the next bit right away. And building enough confidence to just sit after you said something you think is funny and maybe smile and laugh at it because you enjoyed it, gives the audience, like this happened tonight, where I didn't get a laugh right away, but then like one brave soul laughed, and then it started like dotting around, like a bunch of people laughed, and I just sat like 4 or 5 seconds. I had a funny thing happen in I wish I could remember the name right now. It starts with a P. It's outside of Omaha, Nebraska. Papillion, Nebraska. Did a set like, what was it, Saturday night, so like 2-3 nights ago. Papillion, Nebraska, at a Fraternal Order of Eagles Lodge. I don't even know what that is. An Eagles Lodge. But it was a lot of old people.
Yeah.
Felt like my first ever nursing home gig almost.
Wow.
And they were the slowest people to laugh ever. Like I have an opener that I've done, actually not that long. It's like one of my original openers changed, same premise but different punchline. But I've been doing it more recently, and it always gets a laugh, and it's self-deprecating. It's a good start. And I told that joke, and I didn't get a laugh, and I definitely was sitting. I was like, is the microphone not working? Like, how is this not getting a laugh? And as I'm like processing that in my head, I swear, like 5 seconds later, huge laughter.
That's wild.
Like, slowest processing human audience I've ever experienced.
That is wild.
It kept happening. I would tell a joke, and it would take like 3 seconds, and then good laughter.
That's
It
wild.
was so funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever been with an audience that slow.
Yeah.
Typically, they're just either.
It was almost
into it
like
or
they were
not.
getting like the translation, like the United Nations.
Yeah.
You know? Like there was like a tape delay.
That's kind of neat, though. Yeah, it's something that you've got to pay attention to. And then also, like, I do feel like at Comedy Works, it's really easy to like accidentally squash laughter, but it's like hard to sit in a silence for, not a silence, but like it's hard to really know when to speak at Comedy Comedy Works if they're really into your jokes, which, like, for the most part, they always are because they're great. And, like, I have a bunch of one-liners that I do, and it's, like, hard to know when to, like, go on to the next one because the laughter, like, does fizzle out, but a lot of times there are people still kind of laughing.
Right.
Not to, like, toot my own horn at all. I have pretty much only 5 minutes that I've ever done at Comedy Works.
Right. No, I know exactly what you're saying.
But, like...
And you wonder, at least I wonder, with even less material, if I waited long, like after I watch a tape, I wonder, I can definitely hear myself stepping on a laughter, and I wonder how long I would have had to wait to maybe even get something close to an applause break.
But I think it's...
Like, I feel like that's around the corner.
It's risky because you can lose them.
Yeah.
And then it's really uncomfortable and hard to get them back. So I think it would be better to just step on it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, like I keep saying, I really only do, like, 5 minutes of Comedy Works. So it's not like, don't worry, I'm not, like...
Sorry.
Not just, like, crushing people. Also, Comedy Works is, like, insanely a great room. But, like... Yeah, it's an interesting thing, especially if it's like a really, really good crowd. But yeah, no, that was a fun mic. Like, it was a good time. It felt good to do some of those jokes too. Like, felt good to do it.
Yeah.
Gotta go home and write.
Yeah. Anything else you want to chat about or talk about before we sign off?
This was great.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
It was. It was fun.
Thank you everybody for. Oh, you know what? Let's look in your
I should show
page 50. 62, 59,
yeah, guys.
Like
also, look what I just bought. I just bought a book.
Oh, yeah.
Just bought a book.
Yeah. YouTube. You can buy it on Amazon, wherever. Look at page 59, I think. 62? I don't know.
I think it was 62.
While she's doing that, I will...
62! Sarah Benson moved to Denver from upstate New York, and her incredibly bubbly persona won over audiences instantly. Thank you! I recruited her to be on one of my small shows, and she has been regularly booked on other shows since her arrival. Thank you! And Michelle Herring is in this too!
Yeah.
I really love Michelle!
Yeah.
She and I just did shrooms together. She's great. Yeah. Wow, I love that.
All right.
Thank you.
Lots of good stuff in the book.
Yes.
Not good yet. NotGoodYet.com. All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.